Middle name should have been Billy Trouble Martin. And I think that would have been the right thing. Maybe I'd put my epitaph.
The man knew himself. Never forget that as you walk back through his life, his career, and all the ways they intertwined. Never forget he not only didn't deny the trouble part, no, he reveled in it.
The New York Yankees fired manager Billy Martin.
Because wherever you pick up the story, the fact, and it was a fact, that Billy Martin won was always only the start of it all.
Martin's been fired.
Billy Martin has been fired.
Billy Martin is out of his job again.
For every ending, there was another beginning.
Billy Martin has been named the manager of the New York Yankees for not the first, not the second, not the third, not the fourth, but the fifth time.
For everything there was to regret,
the Yankee dugout is a place of turmoil.
There always seemed to be something to root for.
The Yankees win.
In my opinion, the best game manager in the history of the game.
But as much as the game defined him, the truth was that it never was going to save him from himself.
Baseball produced a vicious fight last night.
One of baseball's baddest boys, charged with assault.
Charged with common assault.
Billy Martin, out of control.
A loaded missile, waiting to self-destruct.
Reportedly has a drinking problem. Can you confirm that?
It may sound like an old story, but
Billy Martin is in trouble again.
Billy the Kid, battling Billy.
Great talent, hair trigger, temper.
You're hashing it all up, but I know Billy Martin, and the last laugh is going to be mine.
I haven't looked at these for a very long time. It's funny, it's hard to get rid of this stuff. I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do with it right now.
In my heart of hearts, I never thought we'd find Billy in a rocking chair somewhere.
These are the windshields where he broke his neck. It didn't have to end this way.
You gotta begin every story somewhere. So maybe it works to begin Billy Martin's with a tale of a misunderstanding.
Billy, he didn't know his name. His Italian grandmother called him Belite. That is beautiful in Italian, Belite. So all the other kids thought she was saying Billy, and they started calling him Billy. So when he went like to the first grade, the teacher said, "What's your name?" Said, "Billy Martin." Said, "No, you're Alfred Manuel Martin." He said, "No, ma'am, I'm Billy Martin."
We grew up in an impoverished place. I mean, West Berkeley, right on the docks there in the East Bay. It was just this almost like little square mile of squalor. He was an infant. He was no more than 5 or 6 months old when his father left the household. And his mom, after Billy's father left, called him the jackass for the rest of her life.
Growing up without a father and having his father vilified, that's step number one, the biggest step toward his road to success and then ruin.
Well, his mother, Jenny, she was a real character. And she didn't like anybody talking about Billy or criticizing him. Billy was her pride and joy.
If they pick on him, well, what's he supposed to do? Sit down and not take it? Would you? If I went to hit you, would you sit down and don't take it? You'd try to hit me back, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? If you didn't, you'd be a damn fool.
If you talk about genes being passed on, I mean, that's where Billy got all his feistiness from. It came directly from his mom.
Billy was not the most attractive-looking kid, and so he was a guy that people picked on. Billy fought back and got pretty good at it.
Fight promoters, they tried to convince him to become a professional fighter, but his main passion was baseball.
Certain things that become a permanent trend throughout his life start early, and one of them would be in high school, where he's the star of the high school baseball team. It's fairly apparent he's going to get signed, and yet he keeps getting in fights on the field, and it gets him kicked off the team.
So after graduating high school in 1946, Billy Martin didn't get any offers from big league clubs, leaving him to sign with an independent team, the nearby Oakland Oaks, and their up-and-coming manager, Casey Stengel.
I'll tell you, Casey was as close to a father figure as my father had.
Casey liked him because he was a ferocious competitor and he was really smart.
Billy just spends every game and every minute asking Casey questions about what he's doing and what's going on in the game and what should we do next and how do you steal signs and all these things. And Casey just sort of takes him under his wing, and before you know it, Casey goes and gets the Yankee job, and he brings Billy to New York, you know, a year or two later.
Who's that up there, Kate? That's Billy Martin. Billy Martin can play 2 or 3 positions on the ball club.
Stengel would mostly play Martin at second base when he debuted for the Yankees in 1950, right at the start of a new golden age for the club. The Yankees would win the World Series in each of Martin's first 4 seasons, and he always seemed to be in the middle of the biggest moments, like in the '52 series when the Dodgers loaded the bases late with Game 7 on the line.
It's a high pop-up. Who's going to get it? Here comes Billy Martin digging hard, and he makes the catch at the last second.
If you look at his career, he was a 260, 257 lifetime hitter, but he was a 333 World Series hitter.
Young Billy Martin fires into the first pitch for a home run.
He was Casey's type ball player. He was aggressive, not only by deed, by word as well. He wouldn't mind getting on the opposition, and he'd fight anybody at any time.
That endeared him to people. They could understand a guy who looked like them, wasn't much bigger or stronger than them, wasn't faster than them, but yet got so much out of what ability he did have. They related to Billy.
Everything was going right for the kid who'd grown up with nothing. Even breaking his arm turned out well. When the Yanks flew him home to get checked out, and he started talking to the stewardesses.
I said, "Oh my gosh, you look just like Billy Martin, the ball player." And he beamed and said, "I am." And I rolled my eyes and said, "Sure you are. The team's in Chicago." And with that, I walked up the aisle. Went into the galley. My flying partner laughed. She said, "You didn't watch the game last night. He broke his arm." Oh, I was just horrified at my behavior. Anyway, he proceeded to get her phone number. About 2 weeks later, she knocked on my door and said, "Well, has he called you yet?" And I said, "Who?" And she said, "Billy Martin called me to get your number." Billy was always fun. He was always good company. He really liked to dance, and we would literally dance all night. He was a good date.
But falling in love didn't slow down Martin's nightlife.
My roommate's a little different than most roommates.
Oh, really? Who is he?
A Mickey Mantle.
I mean, they were like inseparable. You know, the 3 Musketeers, him, Whitey, and Dad.
They played together. They got in trouble together. They would sneak out of their hotel rooms to beat curfew. I'm sure you heard the story about the cows and the horses.
Oh, sure. My favorite hunting story of all time.
Kind of embarrassing because I come out being a scapegoat in the whole thing.
You know, Billy just loves to hunt. And so we'd go to a place down by Lakey, Texas.
The rancher always let Mickey hunt there, and Mickey went up to the door, and the guy said, "I'm so sorry, Mickey, but I want to ask a favor. My mule is just about to die. I want you to put him out of his misery for me."
Of course, you know, Dad, they'd always play jokes on each other. And so, you know, Dad came back acting like he was PO'd.
He said, "Billy, I can't believe that. It made me so mad."
Guy won't let us hunt. What are you talking about? We drove 8 hours to get up here. He says, "Well, he won't let us hunt."
He says, "I'm so mad, I'm going to go up to his barn and shoot his mule."
So Mickey grabs his gun.
Went around to the barn, loaded his rifle, took 1 shot.
Then all of a sudden you hear like 3 other shots, and Billy comes running around. And he goes,
"I got 2 of his cows."
Mickey goes, "Whoa, what are you doing? You're killing the guy's good cows."
The 3 Musketeers might have been popular in New York, but their reputation didn't sit well with the Yankees front office. In 1957 came a tipping point, a fight in a nightclub that spilled out into the New York papers.
Billy and Mickey and Whitey Ford and Hank Bauer at the Copacabana,
which was the hottest nightclub in New York at the time.
They went to see Sammy Davis Jr. They were all just sitting around there or whatever, and there was like a bowling team or something that came in there, and they were kind of getting on Sammy and heckling.
One of the bowlers and some of the Yankees are really going at it, and they get up to like go settle this somehow. The bowler ends up out cold in the coat room.
Dad always said Hank's the one that threw the punch and knocked the guy out. It wasn't Billy. But, you know, they had to blame it on somebody. And so since Billy had that reputation, I think he just got stuck with it.
George Weiss, the Yankee general manager, he wanted to get rid of him for years.
They were trying to break up the fabulous threesome of, you know, Martin, Mantle, and Ford. And who were they going to trade? The winningest postseason pitcher in history at the time? Maybe the greatest all-time player in Mickey Mantle, or the 260 hitting second baseman. So they traded my father, I guess assuming that Mickey and Whitey weren't going to go out and have anything to drink after my father left.
Yeah, Billy took it very personally because he thought that Casey could have somehow prevented that trade.
Billy felt, my daddy has abandoned me again. And they didn't reconcile for many, many years.
If you look at his career, he was never the same after taking off the pinstripes.
Billy Martin, former great New York Yankee infield star, former coach of the Minnesota Twins, now their new manager, heading to Minneapolis, St. Paul for the season.
By 1969, it had been more than a decade since Billy Martin left New York. He bounced around to play 4 more years and became a coach after that. Meanwhile, Billy was now married to Gretchen, and they had a son together. So life was pretty good when he was named manager of the Twins prior to that '69 season.
It was the major leagues, and, you know, it's his first opportunity, so it was truly exciting.
The Twins, before Billy takes over, are not a good team, but he molded them into a unit that played together and did unusual things for baseball back then. The running game became primary when he got to the Twins. Bunting, hit and run, first to third on every hit, all these very aggressive sort of things.
One night, says, we're going to work on stealing home. And I'm like, are you crazy?
Rod Carew would steal home an amazing 7 times from Martin that year.
He's safe at the plate. A great move.
Dad always said that Billy was going to be a great manager. When they were playing, Billy was always just right there into the game.
He's a great teacher, great teacher. He would come up with different plays that he imagined in his head, and we would work on that until we got it right. And then sure enough, here's the play. He was ahead of managers all the time.
Martin's Twins ran away with the Western Division, but the ride there wasn't always smooth, because Martin's style grated on some corners of the clubhouse, including with one of his best starting pitchers, 20-game winner Dave Boswell.
Dave was a hot-headed guy. He kept harping at Billy all the time, and one night Billy was sitting at the bar, and here comes Boswell. He came in there and yeah, there's that little short Italian. And Boswell threw the first punch, and he was knocked out on his feet before he could throw another one.
It was the first, but definitely not the last time that a front office had to decide whether Billy's genius was worth everything else that came with him.
No matter how many games he won, I knew he wasn't going to be with us.
Martin had improved the Twins by 18 wins and gotten them to the playoffs, but he was still fired after that one season in Minnesota. Not that that convinced other teams he couldn't make a difference for them. The Detroit Tigers hired him in 1971 to turn them around, which he did.
And the season rolled on, with the Tigers turning out a new hero each day.
He was a force. He went places, teams got better. Billy had this incredible gut for the game.
Martin's Tigers won 91 games in his first season, 12 more than the year before. And they went to the playoffs the next year in 1972.
But at the same time, he warred with management. He fought over personnel.
And so the Tigers fired Martin midway through the '73 season.
You know, I used to say to him as a kid, Dad, don't you want to be a little more, you know, politically correct here? And he'd say, pal, if they wanted a yes man, they wouldn't have hired me.
the Texas Rangers, dead last in the American League West. Into this challenge steps new manager Billy Martin, who in years past would jump into a scrap at the drop of a glove.
This time, he barely had a chance for a vacation after he was fired, as Texas Rangers owner Bob Short dumped his manager to hire Martin just a week after he left Detroit.
Bob Short uttered those famous words, "I would fire my grandmother to hire Billy Martin."
The second day that we were in Arlington, we went to the bank to set up an account. When the vice president asked what my husband's occupation was, I said, "Oh, he's with the Texas Rangers." And he said, "Oh, law enforcement." And I was just, I said, no.
From the Texas Rangers, their manager, Billy Martin.
And that 74 season was absolutely amazing.
They had a song, the Turnaround Gang.
There's a man named Billy Martin who turned this team around. He gave them strength and taught them to fight, and it's hard to put them down.
They call them the Turnaround Gang because that's just what they did, and goes on and on from there.
You would have thought Billy just come in from Odessa. This guy's got a lot of cowboy in him. And of course, he's out there going nuts on the field, umpires, whatever, and he's going nuts off the field at times. People loved it.
We call them the Turnaround Gang because that's just what they've done.
This was a team that lost over 100 games here before. All of a sudden, they're battling for a playoff spot.
He was a fearless manager. He didn't care what the owners thought. He didn't care what the press thought. We felt as a team, if we went into a series against a team that we were even with, that we had a better chance to win because he was our manager.
Billy's managerial stints were often sort of like this three-stage rocket.
The missile was launched successfully.
This beautiful explosion at first, they're really good, they're getting better, and they're getting better, and then things sort of peter out.
And shortly thereafter, the failure occurred.
And then the rocket crashes somewhere. And that was what happened in Texas again.
In 1974, Martin improved the Rangers by 27 wins, and attendance figures doubled in Arlington. But in '75, things quickly fell apart. By mid-July, the club was 15 games out, and his act had again worn thin with a lot of his clubhouse, not to mention with a new owner, Brad Corbett.
The ultimate thing that gets him fired, which is this could only happen in Billy Martin's life, is that there was a dispute between Corbett and Billy over what should be played during the seventh inning stretch. Billy had instituted this playing a John Denver song, Thank God I'm a Country Boy. It was in line with Billy's new Texas theme, and Corbett felt they should play Take Me Out to the Ballgame. Billy tells the public address announcer, basically threatens him and tells him, "You are going to play Thank God I'm a Country Boy. I don't want to hear anything else but that over the PA." And so the PA guy does what he's told from Billy. Corbett's sitting in the stands, hears that come on, and during the seventh inning stretch, and not his Take Me Out to the Ballgame, and goes berserk and fires Billy immediately. Like, the game ends, Billy's fired out the door. All over a song.
It was July 21st, 1975. Billy Martin had been fired as a manager for the third time in 7 years. But literally within hours, he got a call from someone else who had taken notice of what he could do. The new owner of the New York Yankees, George Steinbrenner. The story of Billy Martin, in every which way, was about to change again forever.
When George called, I was just astounded that I said, "I know this is the end." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "The end of our marriage." And he said, "You mean me taking the job in New York?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, then I'm not going to take it." And I said, "Yes, you are. Yes, you are."
Rich and start talking to me about I should go, and I said, I don't think I should. And I kept saying no all night long, and then next morning I woke up, I said, this is a challenge. I always like challenges. I said, well, I think I'll try it.
That was that. was just a premonition, I guess, and it certainly came true.
See the entire acclaimed series that brings the...
Just 11 days after being fired by the Texas Rangers in July 1975, Billy Martin started another job, his dream job, manager of the New York Yankees. His family worried what going back to New York might do to him, but couldn't have known just how wild, how long, and how downright bizarre the ride would be.
He was so excited to get that job. That was his dream job. All his best years as a player were in New York. It's where his heart was.
It's like a little boy dreaming someday to be a Yankee player, then the next thing is the Yankee manager. It's a wonderful thing.
But it was a tough place to manage.
I knew he had his hands full with the press and the players, and certainly with George.
Billy has had his problems in 3 different places. For 9 innings, you won't find a finer manager in baseball. What I've tried to impress upon him was that if you can put the other qualities with the qualities you have, you'll be one of the greatest managers of all time.
Casey Stengel was his first baseball father. The guy who got him to the big leagues, who protected him, and then who betrayed him. Now, we got George, his new baseball daddy.
George wanted to win as badly as my father did. My father respected that very much.
In '75, when he took over the team, there was not too much you could do. Our record was not great, barely finished maybe above 500. It was next year at spring training when things, you went, whoa. What I got right away was how much this guy loves to win. You make an error, you throw a ball away, you misplay a fly ball, you do something that costs the game, he'll come in and he'll upturn the food tray, he'll have the beer cart taken out, he'll go in his office and he'll close the door, but you'll hear things rattling off the wall.
We fed into that. Like some managers might be sitting back in their seat and just kind of mellow. Billy was like almost like George Patton. He was like Patton. He was on that top step, you know, throwing rocks out there and that scowl on his face. And it was very comforting in some ways because you knew that if things went down, if things got tough, he was going to be there in the trenches with you.
It was suddenly this wonderful team. They ran the bases aggressively, they hit home runs, they had terrific pitching, and that was maybe the best year Billy ever had as a manager.
After more than a decade filled with mediocrity, everything changed for the Yankees in 1976 as they won the AL pennant. But in the World Series against the Reds, Billy's team came up empty.
It was a little embarrassing, there's no question about it. When somebody hurts your pride, it hurts a little bit.
There's no question getting swept was kind of humiliating to Billy. But I think they all knew that they were short a player or two, and they especially needed another power hitter. You know, it's just a question of which power hitter they were going to get. Billy wanted Joe Rudy. George Steinbrenner had a different idea.
Both wire services agree that you and Reggie Jackson are about to sign a contract.
Let me just say this. I know you wouldn't be out here on a night like tonight if you didn't feel there was something to it.
Reggie, look out, big time.
Billy and Reggie in New York did not get off on a good foot at all. The news conference where Reggie is introduced in New York, they don't even invite Billy to the news conference.
Big one, there we go.
Billy seemed to think that Reggie maybe thought he was bigger than the Yankees.
I don't think Martin ever was comfortable around Reggie because Reggie was a threat to his relationship with his baseball daddy, George Steinbrenner.
George made sure he had relationships with his important players on the team, and Billy did not like that.
People were fueling the pot. Nettles and Thurman was saying, heard the boss took Reggie to 21 today. Did he invite you?
The Billy, George, Reggie thing was really this like love triangle. Some days it would be George and Reggie against Billy. Some days it'd be George and Billy against Reggie. Some days it would even be Reggie and Billy against George.
The whole scene was just bizarre. It's like, you know, pro wrestling, you know, it was always like some incident going on.
In May, the Sport magazine story comes out. Reggie is quoted, "I'm the straw that stirs the drink."
We all knew, okay, well, this probably is going to be a problem.
Billy always felt like he was the manager and the captain in some ways. He always felt like he was the guy. He was the guy that serves the drink, if you will, and he took a lot of pride in that. And anybody that came in that didn't conform to, being, a little bit subservient to that, he had issues with him.
It all exploded with the whole country watching in June of '77.
You're on national TV. You're in Boston. They're already drubbing your butt. And Jim Rice hits a fly ball to right field.
Falls in front of Reggie, and Reggie doesn't really hustle after the ball, and Rice takes an extra base.
I'm sitting down in the dugout, and Billy's pacing back and forth, and he just exploded. And he hollered at Paul Blair, "Get your glove, go to right field." And we knew, oh, this is not good.
In spring training, Billy told everybody on that team, if I think you dogged it on a play, I'm gonna take you right out of that game. And Billy did exactly what he said he was gonna do.
I remember that Billy had said to a couple of players, "Watch what I do today." That he had planned something.
Jackson hit the top step of the dugout and went flying right at Billy Martin.
I knew Billy was a sucker puncher, so I took my glasses off. I told him, all the alcohol you've been drinking must be going to your brain. And he got hot there.
Now the Yankee dugout is a place of turmoil.
And you're going, did I just see what I thought I saw?
Things only got worse that summer when Martin moved Jackson down in the order.
This became the subplot for the whole summer of 1977, is when is Billy going to admit that he has to bat Reggie fourth? And George wanted him to do it, but Billy was defiant. And the more George wanted him to do it, the more Billy didn't want to do it.
And just as unpredictable was where the fans sided, with Billy.
Here was a guy doing what every guy wanted to do, jump back in his boss's throat. We'd walk down Fifth Avenue, guys up on scaffolds. Hey, Skip, man, that was great. We read what you told George yesterday.
He always understood that New Yorkers are blue-collar people who play hard and want their players to play hard and get after it every day. So when fans looked at Billy Martin, they kind of saw themselves. He had a sense of that. He understood that.
I think they relate to me. The truck driver relates to me. I'm a battler, they're battlers, and I think I'm just what the old common folk like. I don't know.
He would come out with a lineup card to home plate and get these great ovations, and every time the ovation started dying down, he would tip his cap and wave his cap, and the ovation would start again.
Ultimately, Martin moved Jackson back into the cleanup spot, and the Yanks won 41 of their last 54 games to win the AL East in '77. And then, with their backs to the wall against the Royals in the playoffs, Billy put his fearless genius on full display with a move far ahead of its time.
In Game 4, in a critical situation, he brings Sparky Lyle, his closer, in the fourth inning, which was unheard of back then. And he pitches 5 innings.
The ball game is over. The Yankees win it.
Then in Game 5, Billy made a move even more unorthodox and more controversial.
For this one night at least, Billy Martin could do no wrong. He had boldly benched Reggie Jackson in the 5th and final game of the American League playoffs.
We knew that there was some animosity there, but we never thought that in a game like that, they would sit Reggie down. There's no way you're going to sit our best hitter down in a game like this. We were saying, what's going on here? We got to win this game. This is the playoffs.
Reggie was struggling, and Kansas City had loads and loads of speed in that lineup. So Paul Blair, the great defensive ball player, played right field that particular day. How many managers would have the courage, the nerve, the thought of sitting a superstar in a game like that?
Obviously, it could have got him fired if they had lost.
In the 8th inning, another perfect move. Martin sent Reggie Jackson up as a pinch hitter.
And that started the rally where we scored and beat Kansas City.
And the Yankees have won the pennant.
The players celebrated their own skill and their manager's genius.
If it weren't for Billy Martin, that team doesn't get to the World Series.
And in the series, it was Reggie's turn as he exploded for 3 home runs in Game 6. Reggie and Billy might have had a bumpy ride, but together they delivered the Yankees' first championship in 15 years.
The Yankees win their 21st World Series.
It's an incredible feeling because the Yankees hadn't won in such a long time. For Billy to be the guy to bring the team back, you know, it's probably one of Billy's crowning moments in the game.
I still remember Reggie and Billy buddy on the couch in his office. Oh, all his sweetness and light and wonderful and wonderful and wonderful. And then we come to 78, and that's when things really blew up.
The batter hits the ball way far away. Then it goes running up here to first base. No.
Billy always thought he could do anything better than anybody else, or certainly as good.
Right, Coop?
Right. So he felt like he was an actor.
I feel very strongly both ways. I never argued.
He had a lot of endorsements. He was behind the camera a lot.
I think I'll try a swig of this.
And he was comfortable. And he was a big celebrity.
You know, you walk in New York, you go to restaurants, we go to bars after a game, and everybody knew Billy Martin. At that point, if you ask Yankee fans who their favorite Yankee was, Martin, Mantle, DiMaggio, it's probably Billy.
But while Billy was reveling, being back in the New York spotlight, coming off the '77 World Series win, it was all taking a toll on his family, who were left behind.
I didn't know then kind of what was going on a lot of the time.
They were fighting a little bit more, it felt like to me then.
I think he spent 24 hours a day thinking about the team.
When she told me they were breaking up, I was actually relieved in a way. Because, you know, in reality, Dad was married to baseball.
But on the field, like he had before, Billy Martin quickly lost control.
The 78 season started out negative, and within the first month, you're already several games out of first place. So fingers are being pointed.
By the middle of June, the defending World Series champions were 7 games out, testing their owner's patience.
If something happened in a game, the phone would ring, my wife would look at me, and she would say, you know, Eddie, that's George. And then George is saying, Billy lost his mind.
The Yankees were in free fall. By the middle of July, they'd fallen 13 games back.
It's extra innings, man's on base. He asked Reggie to bunt.
Reggie gave it a couple weak efforts, and Billy wasn't too happy with it, so he finally said, let the damn guy hit.
And Reggie deliberately bunted against orders, and he fouls out bunting.
You know, that threw Billy into a fit of rage.
I did that because I wanted a confrontation. I wanted to get it settled.
When it got to George, George completely understood that Reggie was defiant. Reggie got suspended. And when Reggie reported back, Reggie did some media interviews and denied it all.
The way that they have interpreted the offense, and apologies in order, but the way I've interpreted the offense, you know, like I don't really feel I did anything wrong. You know?
He's unrepentant. He's not going to apologize. Billy is like, "Rrr."
I think that being black has something to do with it. I think the fact that as a black man, I don't act very subservient.
I did not accept the way he managed me. I couldn't accept the racial epithets. And so there was an uneasiness, a knowledge about the person that I was very uncomfortable with.
If you were a guy that was going to get after it on his team and play hard, I don't think it mattered what color you were. I really believe that.
Behind the scenes, George Steinbrenner tried to find a creative way out of the Reggie and Billy feud by shopping his manager in the middle of the season. But George didn't count on Billy finding out about it.
Bill Veeck, the White Sox owner, tells him, oh, by the way, like a month ago or so, George called me about switching managers. And then all this is stewing in his head, you know. Reggie's insubordination, George's disloyalty, and he's talking to a couple sports writers.
Billy was in a war that had 2 fronts, and this time he tried to fight his way out with his mouth.
He says they deserve each other. One's a born liar, Reggie, and the other's convicted, Steinbrenner.
Which is, of course, a reference to Steinbrenner's conviction for illegal campaign contributions to Richard Nixon.
George told me that he couldn't handle that one, and he was going to have to fire Billy. Well, I called Billy and I said, Skip, here's what I need you to do. Call a press conference and resign from the Yankees for health reasons.
Why?
He said, Eddie, I'll do it, but why am I doing all that? You resigned for health reasons. He's got to pay you. And George called me and said, you little I know what you did.
I don't want to hurt this team's chances for the pennant. With this undue publicity, the team has a shot at the pennant, and I hope they win it.
Still have the notepad that he wrote, made some notes on about what he wanted to say. I owe it to my health and mental well-being to resign at this time.
I would like to thank the Yankee management,
The press, the news media, coaches, players.
and most of all, come on.
It was pretty emotional. He had a hard time holding back tears. Phil Rizzuto was there to comfort him, put his arm around him, and then the two of them walked off.
All of New York is so distraught because people loved Billy. They did not want to see him exit, and certainly not like this. It's just this outpouring of anger towards Steinbrenner, and phone calls to the stadium, and he's getting killed in the press.
As Steinbrenner felt the heat, he began to second-guess what he'd caused. But he'd already given Bob Lemon a contract to manage the rest of 1978 and 79. So with Old Timers Day scheduled for just 5 days after Martin resigned, George Steinbrenner had a crazy idea.
The plan that George comes up with is, well, you won't come back until 1980, but we'll announce it at Old Timers Day. Get you into the stadium in a clandestine way, and then we'll just announce that you're coming back in 1980. You run out in the field and you doff your cap, and everybody's happy, which is exactly what happened.
Coming down from the clubhouse, going to the dugout, and as you go down, these utility doors on the way. So I was walking by the first door, and I heard this psst, psst, and I said, oh, geez, it's Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth is in here. What's going on? It's like I thought I was hearing ghosts or something. And so I stopped again, and I heard him, psst, psst, hey, hey. And I stopped, and I'm not dreaming. So I turned around, and the door's ajar. It's kind of cracked. And I peeked in there, and Billy Martin's inside, dressed in uniform, inside the room. I said, Billy, what the hell are you doing in the room? What are you doing? He goes, come in. He pulls me into the room, and he goes, I'm coming back. I said, again?
The manager of the Yankees for the 1980 season, #1, Billy Martin.
He's running out on the field, waving his hat. I think I started laughing to myself. I'm going like, here we go again.
It was such a great moment for him because not only were his players on the field that he managed there, but all his old teammates were there. And he got that ovation. He said it was the greatest moment in his career.
When I quit the other day, I called George and told him how I apologize for what was said.
What he said to me showed me that he was a man who realized that he had maybe made a small mistake.
I'm a free spirit, and I'm gonna try to do other things that George wants me to do. In the same time, he says he's gonna try to be a little more free spirit too.
You might have thought that after the scene at Old Timers Day 1978, the whole scenario surrounding Billy Martin, George Steinbrenner, and the Yankees couldn't have gotten any more bizarre. But somehow, it did. Because after Billy Martin was named the Yankees manager with a 2-year lead time, the lame duck in the dugout, Bob Lemon, orchestrated one of the greatest comebacks of all time.
Deep to left. Yastrzemski will not get it. It's a home run. A 3-run home run for Bucky Denton.
Lemon's Yankees made up 14 games in August and September on their way to the AL pennant in 1978. And then he led them to New York's second consecutive World Series title. Yet, nonetheless, Billy Martin was still due to replace Lemon. When in November 1978, this happened.
I was working for the Reno Gazette Journal at the time. I was 25, and it's my first interview that isn't the Douglas County football coach. And I went up to him and I asked him a question about could he peacefully coexist with Reggie Jackson? And right away I could tell that the guy was really hammered. And he told me that he could get along with Hitler, Mussolini, and Hirohito as long as they played Yankee baseball. Then all of a sudden, boom, his mood snapped. And he says to me, I've given you a good interview, now I'm gonna take it back. And he grabbed my notes, he said, give me your notes. And so I put them behind my back, and I said, you're not getting my notes. And he walloped me right in the face with a punch. And he says to me, fighting's no way to solve anything. And then all of a sudden, he hits me again. You know, you look at it, you see the chipped teeth and the big lip, and of course the black eye says it all. That picture was like in almost every sports section in America.
Billy was obviously at fault, but somehow he had to come out not at fault for him to keep his job as the future manager. Judge Eddie Saper got Billy out of jam after jam after jam, and he did it magnificently in this fight.
The hardest part of the whole thing was Ray did want an apology, and we weren't going to get anywhere with Billy saying he was sorry. I took the podium that day. I said, look, this morning I had an opportunity to talk to Ray, I talked to Billy, and both of them are really, really sorry that this all happened.
Eddie Safer apologized. It was kind of ham-handed, but I had had enough. I said, okay, that's good enough for me.
That was the end of it. Billy never said he was sorry.
Eddie Saper's press conference was enough for George Steinbrenner. He not only gave Billy a pass, but with Bob Lemon's Yankees struggling in 1979, moved up the timeline on his plan.
The Yankees now are in 4th place, and so Steinbrenner is bringing Martin back tomorrow night.
Is it true you were bored and that's why you brought Billy back?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I just felt that the team looked a little bored, so I figured it was time that something had to be done. Now, I realize some people say, well, he can't change or he won't change. That's not so. Billy is a different guy. You can tell. You can tell.
It couldn't have started out better for Billy Martin and the Yankees in June of 1979. A heartfelt reception from the fans was followed by the typical Martin turnaround.
Winning is Billy Martin's thing. He did it in New York again. Billy the Kid should make things mighty interesting.
But just 6 weeks after his return, tragedy struck.
The New York Yankees suffered a great loss tonight, that of star catcher Thurman Munson, who was killed this afternoon in an airplane crash.
I was with Dad. We were actually fishing in New Jersey, and a police officer came to the dock with a bullhorn, and Billy Martin, come to the dock. I remember Dad looking at me, what'd I do now? We got to the dock, and they told me Thurman Munson passed in a plane crash, and they didn't want him to hear it on the radio. He was crushed. He loved Thurman.
Billy was a wreck. It's like him losing a son. It was terrible.
As much as Billy was the kind of guy that could get over something, not when it came to Thurman. The entire team was so distraught that Billy knew the season was over.
The Yankees would finish a distant 4th, unable to recover after Munson's tragedy. It was the darkest part of a bad year all around for the franchise. And of course, their manager found a way to put an absurd coda on it afterwards.
Billy Martin is about to become once again the ex-manager of the New York Yankees.
In October 1979, the Yankees season was over. But Billy Martin and his team were still reeling from the death of Thurman Munson, when almost too predictably, Billy found trouble again in a bar in Minnesota.
So he runs into a marshmallow salesman.
A marshmallow salesman?
The marshmallow salesman.
You know, which Billy thought was hysterical.
He said the Marshmallow Man kept on annoying us, and I was tired, and I really didn't want to be annoyed.
I didn't challenge the Marshmallow Man, he challenged me.
Eventually, Billy's had enough of the marshmallow salesman, and he just puts $500 down on the bar and says, I bet my $500 to your penny that I can knock you on your ass out in the lobby.
And the guy says, you know, let's get it on.
I think that guy still owes my father a penny.
I can't honestly tell you who landed the first punch or if there was more than one punch, but the guy went down. He hits his head on the marble floor. George said, suppose he split his head open and he dies. He said, I just can't handle that one, Eddie. I just can't handle that one.
And just a few months later, sure enough, another job came calling.
The A's were one of the franchises of the 70s, but by 1980, they were completely in disrepair. Their nickname was the Triple A's, or the Oakland Pathetics. They were drawing almost nothing. They literally have crowds of 1,200 people at games.
There were nights when they'd say there were 4,000 people here, and you like our 3,000 in the bathroom.
The A's were almost a perfect landing spot for Billy Martin in February of 1980, a club that needed a shock to their system. Just a few miles from where Billy had grown up, and they were also owned by another larger-than-life figure.
Charlie Finley knew that he was a good manager, and he knew that he won wherever he went. He also knew he'd be good for the gate, whether it was winning or fighting with the players in the dugout. I mean, he could guarantee entertainment.
From the start of 1980, Billy made an impact on a team that was suddenly exciting and unpredictable.
He had a genius for pulling out a play to manufacture runs. Like he'd hit and run with a guy on first that couldn't run and a guy at the plate that would strike out. It's the worst combination. How does he get away with that, you know?
He might go. He is going. Here's the pitch. It gets away, and Murphy is stolen home.
We played the small ball. We went out and we squeezed, we hit and runs, we stole. We did creative stuff with Billy at the beginning, and then we got the habit of knowing how to win.
The A's took over second place in the American League West, going 23-11 since the All-Star break.
The team won, and the crowds started to grow.
The A's are following Martin's formula to perfection, playing the kind of baseball that drives opponents crazy with frustration and fans crazy with love.
Fans come out because they like to see exciting, winning baseball. Whether we win or lose, they go home, they say, well, it's not exciting. It isn't a dog game where they just sit down and if you win, fine. If you don't, fine too.
And here he comes. He's heading for the plate. He's safe at the plate.
They started stealing home a lot. And he had a bunch of deceptive double steals. I remember, I said, Billy, I have no clue about that double steal. He said, well, I tell you, hang with me tonight. And if you're hanging and I know that you're seriously hanging, yeah, I'll give them to you. So about 2 in the morning, he said, all right, you're still here. So he gave me like 6 of his favorite double steal tricks. He told me about the left-hander with a real slow pickup move. And he says, what you do is you have the guy on first, make him get off enough to where the guy thinks he can pick him off. And once you do that, the guy on third breaks, because by the time he throws to first, the home's safe. Wrote it down. It's a true story. We're in Comiskey Park. Britt Burns, big, tall, 6'4", you know, that guy. First and third, you know, I'm there, I'm like looking at Billy, you know, and I mean, thinking all of a sudden I see the guy at first, kind of look like he's running. And I caught it, I said, oh no. And by the time, before I could yell, no, Burns goes like this, picks off to first, the guy comes third, steps on home without even a throw. And I'm yelling, no. I went to the top step, took my hat off, and tipped it to Billy. And he tipped it back, you know. It's just genius.
Billy's A's finished second in the AL West in 1980, going from 54 wins to 83. And then they came out storming in 81.
The record for the best start in the history of Major League Baseball was broken today. The Oakland A's became the first team ever to win their first 11 games of the season. The team that was baseball's worst 2 years ago has become baseball's best, an exciting brand of baseball known as Billy Ball.
They call it Billy Ball.
Billy Ball.
Billy Ball.
Can't beat old Billy Ball. Billy Ball is invented. Everything out there is Billy Ball. Every billboard, all the T-shirts, everything was Billy Ball, Billy Ball, Billy Ball. There was a frenzy out there.
The A's did a whole marketing campaign called Billy Ball, and Billy himself starred in the commercials.
And I suppose you came out here just to sit in your hands.
No. The guy comes up to the ticket booth to buy a ticket, and who's behind the counter selling him the ticket but Billy? And he won't give the guy the ticket until the guy impresses him that he's going to cheer loud enough.
Let's hear some chatter.
Way to watch him, Tony.
Come on.
This guy's got nothing, Tony. Make him pitch to you. That's the arm. That's the noodle. That's
Hey, we'll give you a tryout.
It was a fun year with all the Billy Ball. We doubled our attendance. I really believe Billy saved the franchise for Oakland.
Billy Ball. It's a different brand of baseball.
Billy Martin, he's been ripping the umpires the whole series. If umpires had to vote on their favorite manager, unequivocally, it would have been Billy Martin.
Billy was good, and most of the umpires will tell you that. He argued, but he didn't hold a grudge.
Well, don't you be intimidating me. I'm not intimidating you. Don't you give me no
Billy and Earl Weaver took it to a different level.
You're here for one reason to this good. Wrong. That's the only reason you're
wrong,
here.
Earl. Billy loved the confrontations with Weaver.
Weaver and Martin, kind of friendly enemies, I guess.
When Weaver would get thrown out, Billy would get thrown out the same game. But it was which one would do it with more flair. And I think it was always a show with those two. Who could put on the best show? Because they always got thrown out when we played each other. And if it wasn't the same game because he didn't have the opportunity, the very next night, the first thing, boom.
The game hasn't even started yet, and Earl's got the thumb again.
I mean, he got thrown out one time handing the lineup to the umpire. Okay, because Weaver did it the day before.
It's 1981, and Billy Martin was managing the Oakland A's, just miles from his hometown of Berkeley, California. He was surrounded by old friends and family, which gave people some glimpses into where and who he came from.
One of the security guards comes up and he goes, "Hey, Z-Man, some woman wants to see you." I said, "What?" I walk over and I look, and there's this old woman. And she goes, "Where's Billy?" I looked back and I said, "You know, he's probably inside at his office." She says, "Well, tell that little to come out here. His mom wants to see him." I said, "Okay, I'll go get him right now."
His family was so happy he was back there. His kids were happy that he was there and not in New York, and it wasn't in the pressure cooker of New York, wasn't dealing with George Steinbrenner.
He got there, got a little stomach, a belly, got color in his face. He looked great. He was under so little stress there.
It all came together for Billy and the A's in '81, and the team got to the playoffs, where in a perfect twist, they won up against the Yankees.
Billy so much wanted to go to New York. So much wanted to go to New York. And it was a great moment when we went back there, and the fan reaction to Billy was incredible.
Number 1, Billy Martin.
Before game one, George came down. They hung out together like they were the best of friends forever. George wanted to be Billy, and Billy wanted to be George even more.
But that '81 Yankee team was a really good team, and the A's were no match, and they swept them.
Even despite the loss, Billy's turnaround job in Oakland might have been his best one yet. He was, without question, one of baseball's best on-field managers. Maybe even its very best. But there was still everything else, and soon everything else got in the way again.
I never could totally understand how he couldn't go with the flow almost, you know, but things were going good. It almost felt like he had to throw something in there to upset things a little bit.
As usual, there were issues on the field.
Oakland A's manager Billy Martin was charged with common assault, a result of this run-in with umpire Terry Cooney during last Friday's game with the Blue Jays.
And then also new issues elsewhere.
Billy's personal life was a little bit tumultuous in that period, for sure. At that point, he kind of had like a home girlfriend and a road girlfriend.
I had gotten a job working at Angel Stadium, and so he asked me to meet him after the game. I was kind of scared and frightened. His reputation probably preceded himself of being somebody that just was bigger than life, and I was basically pretty shy. But it was fun. He was a gentleman. Danced great. I remember when he walked me back to my car that evening, you know, you're always kind of skeptical or whatever, but he took his cowboy hat off and he bowed and said it'd been a pleasure. You know, I was melting. It was easy to fall in love with him.
But there was someone else besides Jill. Another woman who Billy lived with in the Bay Area and would eventually marry in 1982.
It's like Heather's my home girl, and Jill's my road girl, and it's kind of the best way to define it.
Sometimes he would tell Heather he'd be going to a speaking engagement in Denver. He actually would be flying to Southern California to spend the time with Jill. And he would actually tip the sky caps at airports to give him baggage tags that said Denver. So when he got home, his bags had Denver tags on them.
He was in a dark mood a lot of the time. He was having problems with the IRS.
He wanted to have one of his years paid in advance. The team would do that, so Billy just started drinking. It was a bad game. A couple of the coaches were in there, and they started drinking and destroyed Billy's office. A refrigerator got knocked down, a TV got pulled off its brackets. Billy cut his hand, there was blood on the wall.
I tore up my office because I was told that I didn't have another 5 years on my contract, which I did on a handshake, and that really upset me. I had a 10-year contract. I had a handshake, and to me, a man's words is bond.
You could just feel it was different, you know, and part of it was losing. You didn't like to lose. I remember one night we lose. It's quiet. It's deathly quiet in the clubhouse. In the spread room, there was like coleslaw, there were some beans, and then there's fried chicken, and guys are just kind of munching, and all of a sudden, here's Billy. His eyes were wild, and he was looking at everybody and said, "Oh yeah, we're eating?" He said, you guys played like pigs? And then he had a fungo in his hand, and he started like just slamming it down on the table, and coleslaw's floating, and it was like beating the table, and just like sort of cracked, and sort of, then he like flipped over the coleslaw, knocked over the beans, and then started hitting chicken. And guys are ducking, and pieces of chicken are going all over, and then he yelled, "So eat like pigs," and threw the fungo, and I remember it hit the floor and a chair and like flipped and like stuck into the wall.
And at the end of 1982, Billy's expiration date had come up once again.
They called me. Clearly, I can hear them now. Say, "Eddie, we got the best manager in baseball. We do not think that we can replace Billy with a better manager. In fact, we know we can't. But sometimes you have to make change for the sake of change. And that's why we have to make a change."
January 1983. Over the previous 14 years, Billy Martin had managed 5 teams, one of them twice. 14 years of strategic brilliance and signature intensity. 14 years of chaos and turmoil, and too many bar fights to count. But there he was, in the Bronx, up on a podium again with George Steinbrenner. The George and Billy show, incredibly, was set for episode 3.
For instance, I'll be handling all the trades.
What do you mean?
There'll be no phone calls in the dugout.
What do you mean? That is not, no, that's not right. I'm handling the trades.
That isn't the way we say it,
I have the right
George.
to call you in the dugout anytime
That's not
I
the way
want.
it's going to be, George.
Well, you're damn right it is, and if you don't like it, you're fired.
You haven't hired me yet.
Thus did George Steinbrenner and Billy Martin announce their 3rd professional marriage, making him the highest paid manager ever.
He's a winner, and I want a winner, and I think this time it's going to be for quite a while.
George liked Billy very much, and they both had the same Lord that came down when they won and gave them each a little bit more life, and when they lost, came down and took a little life away from each of them.
Billy's return would start like all the others. Everybody said the right things, and the Yanks immediately improved.
And the Yankees win the ball game.
If you were unfamiliar with the saga, all you would have focused on were all the highlights.
It's 83. Reg is not there anymore. You know, so all of these other guys are new guys. They don't know all of this stuff.
I really like playing for Billy.
What a play by Mattingly. Holy cow.
And look at him as a guy that actually gave me opportunity that maybe another guy wouldn't have the courage to do.
For Don Mattingly, his first home run of the year.
But the truth was that nothing had changed, and pretty quickly, the rest of the story began to drag things down.
He was married at the time, but he was seeing this woman, Jill.
He was married to someone else then, okay? And so I didn't know this.
There was a day in Milwaukee, she was passing notes to Billy by putting a note between her toes and putting her foot up on the railing, and Billy was taking the notes. Now, we were watching this in the press box.
And this ended up getting written about, created a big firestorm because, as Billy said, like, they wrote that? Don't they know I'm married?
And so Billy's agent holds a press conference saying, reports of Billy and this girl are unfounded.
Unfounded.
I said, if somebody showed me a picture of somebody passing Billy a note with their toes, you know, I'd believe my eyes.
She was right there. We saw her.
It wasn't true.
We all just watched it. There were 50,000 people there who saw it.
It just didn't happen that way.
It became another, thing that Steinbrenner had to swoop in and try and, get to the bottom of. Instead of talking about baseball, we spent the weekend talking about, was the manager paying attention to the game?
Billy's response to the mess was to blame the New York press. And when the Yanks fell below 500 in May, he zeroed in on one prominent critic, New York Post columnist Henry Hecht.
He might have wrote a few derogatory stories. But look, if you're gonna pull the stuff that you pull, how can you expect people to write great things? They're gonna write the bad things. They're gonna write negative stuff.
Billy calls a team meeting. He rips me a new one. You can't trust me. I'm no good.
Billy was like, nobody talks to this guy.
If Henry was there, he'd ask, okay, Henry, look, got orders.
He was trying to ruin my career.
Henry came up to me, was talking, and somebody had seen it. And Billy walks down there, and he just says, Balboni can play here too. And just one of those, I'm like, I get it.
But despite that issue and a few others, Billy Martin and the Yankees turned it around in 1983, winning 91 games, 12 more than the year before, which was good, but not good enough for the boss.
Billy Martin is out of his job again as manager of the New York Yankees, and the Yankee owner George Steinbrenner has now replaced Martin 3 times. He'll stay on as an advisor this time, and Yogi Berra will be the new manager.
George might have thought by keeping Billy on the payroll, nice salary, that he was being a good guy, but I just think he was there as a convenient stopgap in that job. And then when he needed him to be a manager because no manager could ever satisfy him, well, there was Billy.
When George Steinbrenner fired Billy Martin for a third time after the '83 season, the truth was Billy had other problems to deal with anyway. Like when his girlfriend Jill finally found out about his double life.
I had found that out, and that kind of ended the relationship. I took all of his stuff out of the house and I threw it on the street. And I guess the neighbors called the police.
Billy's reputation was tarnished before, but it was starting to get smudged even more. It was kind of a black mark, that, geez, he's not in the spotlight, and yet we're still having this kind of thing where the police are involved.
So after things calmed down, there was a period of time he just started following me around and wasn't going to give up and promised me that it would all work.
And while Billy was getting a divorce from Heather and salvaging things with Jill, back in the Bronx, George Steinbrenner was losing patience with Yogi Berra. After a disappointing '84 season and a slow start to '85, he made the all too predictable move.
They changed from a yogi to a yo-yo yesterday when owner George Steinbrenner hired Billy Martin as manager for the 4th time.
The George and Billy show has begun to wear thin in New York.
The Yankee players openly admitted they didn't want Martin back.
I don't blame him for being upset. Yogi's a wonderful man. He's my best friend for 35 years, so I'm not exactly overjoyed seeing Yogi being fired, but that's part of the game.
It's not like you don't like Billy, but you also know that, drama's coming.
And in 1985, the defining drama unfolded in late September in the form of yet another, yes, another, infamous fight.
There's a blast. Whoa, he hit this one a ton.
Starter Ed Whitson had struggled in his first year in pinstripes. And by the last few weeks of the season, the pressure of New York and Billy Martin pushed him to the brink.
Have you heard the stories about his locker? I come walking in the clubhouse one afternoon. A priest by the name of Father Joe was on his knees and he was performing an exorcism on his locker. I just went, Father Joe, you gotta be me. It's an expression, okay? It came out that way. And Father Joe, bless his heart, he went, Gator, I you not. And he just kept doing it. I mean, he never missed a beat.
When you aren't going good, with Billy, that was personal. It's like you were trying to have a bad year to hurt him.
We go to Baltimore, and him and Billy had words, I think, the day before.
He had scratched him from the start and said that whatchamacallit was having some problem with his arm. Didn't even use his name. So that came back to Whitson.
Ed was in the bar, a few cocktails, and he was fired all up. So now we got a Yankee fan coming in. Yankee fan coming in, and they getting all over Ed and all over.
Ed grabbed the guy, and he turned the guy around, and he put the guy up against the wall.
He had the guy off the ground in the neck, strangling him.
Lay off, just to shut up, have your drink, whatever.
Billy hears.
He runs from in the corner.
Billy was a little man. I always call him Little Man Complex.
And Billy came up from behind, and he threw a punch. Okay? And look, he ain't here today. I can't ask him, what were your intentions when you did it? So I can't tell you if Billy was actually trying to hit the guy or if he was actually trying to hit Whitson. But Billy hit Whitson. Well, Whitson didn't waste any time.
Whitson was wearing these big, cowboy boots, and he just kicks Billy in the crotch.
Just about lifts him off the ground with this kick.
What the hell do you think Billy's gonna do?
Billy just went crazy.
Billy doubles over like he's gonna collapse, and then like an action figure in a movie, just stands up and says, "Now I'm gonna have to kill you." It's not funny, but it was so funny.
The bouncers came in and said, "Y'all can't be fighting in here doing this." Billy said, "Okay, can we go outside in the parking lot?" Huh?
Those two went at it again.
Now we gotta pull the head off Billy.
We took Billy to the back, almost like a service elevator, and Whitson was going to the front.
But as it happens, Whitson and Billy were staying on the same floor.
The elevator doors open.
There's Whitson standing right there, and they started going at it again.
Now they fighting down the hallway.
Baseball produced a vicious fight last night in a Baltimore hotel bar between Yankee manager Billy Martin and Ed Whitson, one of his pitchers. Martin got the worst of it, a broken arm.
You're going only here does crap like that happen. And yet, we wound up 2 games out of first place, and we had a shot.
Billy Martin drove the Yankees to 97 wins in 1985. Somehow, he once again produced results on the field, even if once again the end of the story was almost too familiar to take.
And speaking of going around in circles, Martin's been fired by the Yankees.
It's like deja vu all over again.
Even after the craziness of the end of the 1985 season, Billy Martin remained with the Yankees organization as a part-time broadcaster and a special assistant to George Steinbrenner. In 1986, he was even honored with a plaque in Monument Park, a reminder of the pride and the worthy sides of a complicated man.
Yeah, he was good to me.
He always wanted to do things for me. He always wanted to make sure that I was okay.
He always had a soft, very almost sweet side to him. And most people wouldn't think that, but he was always very giving.
In 1953, when he was MVP of the World Series, they gave him a Pontiac.
He gave it to his priest in California.
We're in Minnesota. This guy walks in with
like he was down on his luck. I saw Billy peel off a couple of $100, give to this guy.
Cabbies and elevator operators pulled me aside and tell me how nice my father was to them.
I had a day here in Lafayette. They wanted to know, you think he would come? Hey, I'll be there. What time? When do you need me?
Billy and I went to dinner one night, and, you know, I says, hey, I'd like you to be my daughter's godfather. And he says, no, you don't want me. I says, yes. He started crying.
But of all of the people who loved Billy Martin, there might have been no one more infatuated with him than George Steinbrenner. And after the 1987 season, it was time for another announcement.
It's deja vu all over again. Billy Martin has been named the manager of the New York Yankees for not the first, not the second, not the third, not the fourth, but the fifth time, replacing Lou Piniella, the man who replaced him back during the 1985 season.
People who say that, why would you bring him back a fifth time? Well, for one thing is, if you want to create excitement around your team, that's one reason. Look at the headlines. Look at you asking the questions, all these people saying, you know, opinions on it. But he has a tremendous following. Season ticket sales are $3 million ahead of last year at this time. And a major portion of that's because Billy Martin's coming back.
Billy on the field is one of the most successful managers of all time. But Billy off the field has always been a loaded missile, waiting to self-destruct.
Billy off the field is married now and is very happy, and has been happy for the last 3 years. Somebody said, well, I haven't read much about you the last 3 years. I said, well, I haven't been out much the last 3 years. I kind of like it.
A lot of people look at him as some, I don't know, cartoon character that liked to fight a lot. It was so much more of that, and they missed so much of that. And if you saw him in spring training in the early morning, how much he loved talking baseball, you know, he had time. He had time for us.
Buck Showalter was a young coach in his first spring training with the Yankees, in awe of his manager, and honored when the great Billy Martin invited him out for a night on the town.
And I was a designated driver, and Billy flipped me the car key. He said, you're with us tonight. He goes, we'll see how good you feel about that. So we ran around Port Charlotte. Everything was great. I mean, he just loved talking about the Yankees. And then sooner or later, somebody would pop off, and Billy just wasn't one of those guys that walked away or turned the other cheek.
Because of my reputation, they read in the paper, they come out of the walls and they feel that they have a right to come up and say something wise. They forget that you're a man first, and then you're a manager. The manager part comes second as far as I'm concerned.
Going out to a bar with my father was like hanging out with Billy the Kid. Somebody invariably would walk up and challenge him.
I know, I've been out with him now and I've seen it. And I say, just don't tell me the guy stumbled or tripped and hit his head against the wall. I mean, you want to hit a guy who gets on your case and really gives you a hard time, okay.
Almost too predictable to believe, the '88 season followed a familiar script. The Yankees were in first place by May, but soon after, trouble found Billy Martin, this time on a road trip in Texas, while out with his old friend Mickey Mantle.
Dad had gotten a room at the hotel, too, where the Yankees were staying, so that way they'd just be together.
Billy meets Mickey at the hotel, and it's just filled with Yankee fans. And so Billy turns to Mickey and says, is there someplace quiet we can go? And Mickey says, yeah, I know the place. And Mickey, who was like this, takes him to this loud, throbbing strip club.
Put it on record, because my wife will see this. I have never been in the lace. But I do remember the story, and it wasn't good.
They might have been drinking a little bit too much that night.
And at some point, Mike Ferraro, who was the coach for Billy, takes Mickey Mantle home and leaves Billy alone in the bar, which is never a good idea.
Billy just innocently went to the bathroom, and when he went to the bathroom, he got viciously attacked, and they beat him, I mean, bad.
Steinbrenner, Mr. Steinbrenner, is with them for this road trip.
There was a fire alarm at the hotel.
5 o'clock in the morning, and the first guy out of the building is the old man.
And here comes the taxi pulling up after hours. Doors open up, Billy falls out, you know, his ears bleeding and all this other stuff. And Mr. Steinbrenner looks at him and goes like,
he just said, I don't want to know anything about it, just take him away. It's like of all times to have a fire alarm. The old man was coming out in his robe.
He almost lost his ear, and obviously wasn't great for his legacy either.
The nurse asked him when he was getting his ear stitched up, he says, do you have any allergies?
He says, yeah, people, P-E-O-P-L-E.
Billy Martin, involved in an incident last night.
He came to the ballpark that next day all stitched up, and it was almost like you see still blood stains where they didn't clean him up too good. I just remember looking at him and really feeling really bad for him, like, Billy, what are you doing, man? Come on, what are you doing?
You know, by then, the chorus was building that Billy was perhaps dangerous. He had big problems with the umpires that year. He had this incident in Oakland where he went after umpire Dale Scott.
Billy Martin has been thrown out of this game, and Billy is not going to go quietly.
And Billy got suspended. And the umpires threatened to not come on the field if Billy was on the field. That Billy had to stay in the dugout, and if he left the dugout, they were going to stop the game. So the story's getting familiar. He wins. They've been in first place most of the season, but there was all this other stuff.
Reportedly has a drinking problem. Can you confirm that?
I don't know, sir. I don't get into in those things.
The game is a lot of times your salvation. Now when the game ends, now you're by yourself. It's a very lonely job as a manager. And I think the way Billy solved it was, you know, he'd go to a bar and have too many drinks. That's the sad part of the genius side of him.
I don't like telling the stories about that, but, you know, if he had his glasses on in the dugout, he was probably out. You know, sometimes I'd jab him in the ribs when the camera would pan in. I'd knock him in the, hey, this camera's on you, dude.
Was it worth it? And George, again, had Pinella waiting in the wings.
It may sound like an old story, but Billy Martin has been fired as manager of the New York Yankees again.
You know his downfall was drinking. I mean, that was it.
Alcoholism is a disease. And so I think that there was a touch of that.
I don't drink that much. I mean, not as much as I get credit for. I don't do a lot of things I get credit for as much, but I think drinking's all right if you hold it and control it and it don't control you. I've never been a heavy drinker to the point where it controls me. Some people who want to throw rocks at me have come out and made comments like that, but I never had any trouble that way.
I always wished that things would calm down and maturity would set in.
Why didn't anyone ever say you have to go to an AA meeting? They didn't do that then. It was a different world. Billy Martin was of his time.
Now, there are many fans who want to know, what's Billy Martin up to these days? What are you doing?
I'm a very poor farmer, but I'm loving it.
Where are you doing the farming, and how are you?
Up a little town called Port Crane, up right outside of Binghamton, New York, and I like it very much.
After his 5th tour as Yankees manager ended in June of 1988, Billy Martin did something different. He got away from baseball, buying a farm in upstate New York.
It made it a great getaway, a great retreat. He really enjoyed it, and he knew more about the country than you would have thought. He did all the bush hogging, helped the gardeners, took care of the lake. He was a hands-on guy.
Never saw Billy happier than that time. He loved having a big house out there, a little bit of property, and so I think he was very content and very happy at that point.
Even if he was far from any big league ballpark, there were still rumors about the 61-year-old Martin's baseball future and the idea of a 6th trip back to the Yankees dugout.
He wasn't ready to take off his hat. He wanted to go back. There's no question.
88 bled into 89, and Dallas Green was the Yankee manager, and that didn't go so well, and then Bucky Dent took over, and that didn't really go so well.
If Billy wasn't the Yankee manager, he was always waiting to become the Yankee manager.
Well, let's talk about Billy Martin. I mean,
Let's talk about it.
would you bring him back as number 6?
You know, anything can happen in this game, and anything might happen.
George hatched this plan that, you know what, I don't know how good 1990 is going to go. If it goes bad like I think it's going to go bad, you're going to be the guy. So Billy started calling all his old pals and said,
keep your powder dry. We're going back to the Yankees next year.
Did he talk to you about that at all?
Yeah, he did.
And then it was Christmas Day, 1989. Billy's good friend Bill Reedy was in town for the holiday. The pair left Martin's house around noon, heading to downtown Binghamton to run an errand.
Their trip became a trip to find a bar that was open on Christmas Day. There was a restaurant, Maury's, that was open, and Billy saw the sign that it was open. He says, well, if they're open for dinner, then they're open for drinks.
My name is Bob Dunlop, and I was a bartender at Maury's Restaurant on Christmas Day in 1989. The restaurant opened at noon, and Billy and his friend Bill Reedy were there shortly after that. Billy was in a great mood, very personable, very happy, wishing everybody a Merry Christmas. He did tell me that he'd heard from George Steinbrenner and he was going to return to the Yankees in the spring. Billy was drinking martinis, and Bill was drinking beer. They were there 4 hours. I would say it'd be a logical assumption to say they had more than 2 or 3 drinks. But I can't tell you that. I don't know. I don't remember. Never crossed my mind to count how many drinks they had. When they left, they said goodbye to everybody, wished them Merry Christmas again. Who got in what side of the truck? I have no idea. It was probably 20, 25 minutes from Maury's to Billy's house.
You get off the exit and go up kind of a windy, difficult road to navigate, even in good weather.
The elements out there that night: snow, sleet, hail, black ice.
And they get to within sight of the house. Billy's vehicle makes a left turn, and they slid off the road into what was a very deep ditch. The car lurched forward, trying to get out of the ditch, and didn't, and instead hit this culvert. The crash is literally at the foot of his driveway.
The gates where the accident happened had ringers on it that would let you know that someone was coming or going, and it rang, and it was the chief of the fire department telling me that there had been an accident out front.
First responders on the scene, when they get there, they look inside the truck, which was sideways in this culvert. Windshield is smashed.
Neither one of them had their seatbelts on, and Billy's neck was snapped immediately.
When I went out there, I saw that Billy was on a stretcher in the snow. I just got down on my knees and grabbed his head and said, "Oh, baby, there's so much to live for. Please, keep trying." And, held his hand, felt the blood leave his body. Horrible day. Horrible night.
Five-time New York Yankees manager Billy Martin died last night at the age of 61.
Martin was killed Christmas Day in an auto crash near his home in upstate New York.
I just remember Billy Jr. just immediately dissolved in tears.
It was obviously, that time in my life, definitely the most painful moment that I'd ever dealt with.
All of a sudden that comes on the news. Dad was sitting here and I was sitting here. He just put down like the remote control, didn't say a word. He got up, walked to the front hall, grabbed his keys, left.
Christmas Day is my birthday, and we was at home. I got a phone call that, Billy had died. And I was heartbroken, and we really broke down about him being gone.
It all could have been avoided. But then when you're thinking about how much he drank, you always figured something bad was gonna happen.
Drinking killed him, literally and figuratively.
Police say Martin was a passenger in his own pickup driven by a friend. The driver has been charged with drunken driving.
At the scene of the accident, Bill Reedy, who suffered a broken hip, told police he was driving. But soon after, he changed his story.
Bill, being the good friend, at first said he was driving because he didn't want more negative crap written about Billy, but he didn't know that Billy had died at that time.
When he found out that Billy had died, then there was no reason to cover up for Billy any longer.
This sets in motion the controversy that ended up eventually, there were 2 trials over who was driving.
There was no way that I could have this man pass away being the driver of that vehicle, because he wasn't.
Whoever drove that vehicle to Billy's house missed the exit.
I don't think Billy would have missed the exit.
Which would suggest maybe somebody that's not so familiar with the route, which Billy was, but Reedy wasn't.
I did overhear Bill Reedy say to Billy, if we're having one more, you better give me the keys because I'll be driving.
I could never get the keys from Billy. Never.
These are the windshields of the vehicle that they used as evidence.
Where the bodies were in the vehicle suggests Bill Reedy was driving.
The circle over here is where they extracted the hairs for the DNA.
In both cases, they said Bill Reedy was driving. I think if you look at the preponderance of evidence, I think Bill Reedy was driving.
It didn't have to end this way.
Billy Martin will be buried today following a mass at St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City.
In the cathedral, I remember losing it as the procession was starting to leave. And just as I'm getting up, I really started breaking down, and a man grabbed me kind of by the arm, helped straighten me up, and said, I want you to walk outside and see how many people loved your father. And he walked me outside, and you couldn't even see the sidewalks. There were so many people. It was Richard Nixon that kind of helped me catch my snap and kind of get it back together. And it was a tough day.
In baseball, between Yankee Stadium and that road where Billy Martin died, there's a place they put the ones who were the very best at what they did in the game. But one name you won't find in Cooperstown, New York, is Billy Martin. Maybe it's because of all the complications, if we can put it that way, that he caused for himself off the field. Maybe it's because he never lasted more than 3 full seasons and then he stopped as a manager. Maybe because now, all these years after that truck drove off that road, people just don't remember everything that Billy Martin was. It takes a while to get to everything anyway. Still, if they say one of the best things about baseball is the characters you find in the game, people the game awakens something in, a gift, a genius, a fire. There's something worth treasuring about those characters. No, they're not perfect, but don't ever let yourself forget them.
He was a genius. Do he belong in the Hall of Fame? I think he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
There are 7 managers in the Hall of Fame who have a worse winning percentage than Billy Martin. And they include Tony La Russa.
I'm sorry that guys today have never gone against a guy like Billy. You better be on your toes or you're going to be walking in that dugout slaughtered.
I always give Billy credit for being the best manager I've ever played for.
He had a way of being able to go inside you, get to know you, in order to light the fire.
He was a ball player, he was a fighter, he was a lover, he was a manager. He packed a lot into a lifetime.
How would you like to be remembered?
Well, I think they'll think about me as what some of the press try to make them think about me, a very tough, hard guy to get along with. I don't think that's what I'd like to be known at, but that's the way I've been built, and that's a shame that's the way it's going to be.
I don't care what anybody says about it. He's a good man. I saw the best of Billy, even when he was having too many drinks.
None of us got it all figured out, but Billy tried.
As good or bad as what you think it was when you were doing it, when he was there and all of the chaos that he caused, He did exactly what he wanted to do. He lived life like he wanted to live it. He managed it like he wanted to manage it. He certainly played like he wanted to play. So, you know, he did it his way. It was how he wanted to do it.